Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The momentum that USC is building on the recruiting trail, it is real. It has been real for the last couple of weeks. And late Tuesday night, the momentum starts to pick up once again as four-star defensive lineman Tomuhini Topui, who is committed to the Oregon Ducks for the last 6 months, backs off his commitment from Oregon, shows up on campus for USC during their first spring practice, decked out in USC gear. From everything that we're hearing, USC is by far the leader in the clubhouse in this recruitment. And quite frankly, I think we were kind of expecting a commitment late last night. Kind of funny story. Many of the USC fans who've been rocking with the fellas the last couple of weeks know that I think this kid's probably the best defensive lineman in this 2026 cycle. I got dinner plans last night. I canceled those dinner plans in preparation to break down a commitment from Tomuhini. Now, we did not get that commitment, but it does sound like USC is in a really good spot. We will certainly break down that commitment if and when it does happen, but it's not the only storyline that we've seen emerge for USC on the recruiting trail over the last 24 hours. Want to talk about a couple of different, kind of players and recruiting battles to watch for USC over the next couple of days and weeks. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. Many of y'all know I've had a blast talking this USC program specifically on the recruiting trail. Been really fun the last couple of weeks, and the amount of support that y'all continue to show to the fellas, it means the world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. It sounds like we're going to have some fireworks over the next couple of days and weeks. So like we've been saying the last couple of weeks, buckle in because it's about to get real. Without further ado, let's just briefly talk about Tomuhini. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. I really do think this kind of recruiting battle is you win these kind of recruiting battles consistently and you put yourself in a really good spot to win Big Ten championships and national championships. And quite frankly, just as importantly, these kind of recruiting battles where you're going toe to toe with the Oregon Ducks, that keeping him away from Oregon and then also adding a really good player to your roster. These are massive swings in terms of the Big Ten and really college football landscape. Now, why am I such a big fan of Tomuhini? And we'll get into it when we break down the film. This kid is he's the best of both worlds in the middle of that defensive line. At 6'3", 320, he is built like a brick house. He's a guy that can do some of that dirty work, line up as a nose and eat up double teams and win at the point of attack and not necessarily make a ton of plays, but allow your linebackers to make a lot of plays. But at the same time, he's a guy that if you put him out at the three tech and you give him a little bit more space to operate, he is such a powerful and coordinated and fluid athlete for that size that he can be a game wrecker too. He can be a guy that gives you a ton of juice in the pass rush, that gives you a lot of penetration. It's hard to find these kind of bodies that can do the dirty work, but also be a game wrecker. In my opinion, Tom is one of those guys. And another thing that stands out is he's, to me, about as day one ready as it gets. This is a guy that if you land his commitment, he will be in the rotation immediately in the 2026 season as a true freshman. He's not only physically ready, but technically, this kid is about as impressive as it gets. And so you look at the boxes you want to see checked on the defensive line. I kind of made the comparison. I know this is going to sound kind of crazy, but when I look at that junior year film from Mater Dei, I get Mason Graham vibes. Because Mason Graham, yes, he was a very powerful, stout guy in the middle of that defensive line. I'm a Michigan fan, watched a lot of Mason Graham over the years. But what Mason Graham made him special is how explosive he was off the line of scrimmage, how coordinated and fluid and athletic he was. You see all the same kind of body mechanics from a guy like Tomuhini. And another thing that's worth noting here is this defensive line class in 2026 is just not all that good. There's not a ton of like blue chip, high quality prospects, big bodies in the middle of the defensive line. To me, Tomuhini is arguably the best one in the cycle. And so you land him along with already a guy in Jamie Winfield, who I think is certainly one of the better defensive linemen too. It puts you in a really good spot in terms of what your defensive line is going to look like over the next couple of years, especially in comparison to a lot of other national championship contenders. USC's put a ton of time and resources into building this front seven, and I think it's evident with this recruitment. Why is that so important? Go look at, and this is another storyline we've talked about, go look at the last 4 or 5 national champions. Ohio State, Michigan in 2023, Georgia 2022, Georgia 2021. Now, all of those teams did things different. They were different kind of football teams. What did all 4 of those teams have in common? They were not only good on the defensive line, they were elite on the defensive line. I mean, I'm talking multiple top 100 NFL draft picks. That's where USC is trying to get to. If you want to be a national championship team, you have to have a dominant defensive line that can stop the run, get after the passer. If you can stop the run, get after the passer, you're going to be an elite defense, and USC is working their tails off to get those kind of bodies to come into this program. We'll see what plays out over the next couple of days and weeks. This is a massive development in terms of USC building this 2026 cycle. Now, another really intriguing storyline. I woke up to this one. I was staying up late because I thought the Tom news was going to hit. I'm an East Coast guy, so I was staying up till about midnight waiting for it. Coach Zach Hanson, I woke up to this. Puts out a tweet, puts out the emoji tweet. Late last night, it was midnight my time. I believe it was around 9:40 for y'all on the West Coast. All right, well, what does that mean for the offensive line recruiting? It's only good news. Now, I don't know if a commitment is imminent, but my first thought, I think, for a lot of USC fans was probably Tom's teammate, Cody Green. And it is very clear that USC is pushing all their chips into the middle of the table to recruit modern day right now. Cody Green would be a massive development. And another battle between USC and Oregon right now. I think Texas is trying to get in it as well, but it sounds like it's going to come down to USC and Oregon. Now, I'm not sure when this is going to come, but I think this should fire up a lot of USC fans. And then the other name you probably have to monitor with that tweet is Sam Utu, who y'all know I love. I think he reminds me about Jonah in terms of, hey, he could probably come in and play tackle because I think he's that good of an athlete. He'd probably be best at guard. A versatile blue chip body on the offensive line, a position that's really hard to evaluate. It's really hard to figure out if these 17, 18-year-old kids are going to be good on the offensive line 3 years down the road. To me, the evaluation ain't that hard for Sam Utu. I don't know if he has top 10 NFL draft traits, but he's going to be a multi-year starter for wherever he goes. And it sounds like USC is clearly the leader in the clubhouse for this one. Now, the other really unique storyline here was 4-star wide receiver from St. John Bosco, Madden Williams, gets an offer. This is worth following. And I quite frankly am surprised that USC had not offered Madden Williams until this point. But I think USC immediately becomes a main contender to flip Madden Williams. Now, what do I love about Madden Williams? He's a guy that is a very polished wide receiver. Now, he's got a bigger frame than I think you realize. I think he's closer to 6'2", 195, so the frame is ideal. It's not crazy track and field speed for Madden Williams, but a really, really polished route runner who has elite ball skills. When the football is in the air, his coordination is elite in terms of adjusting his body, high pointing the football, being physical at the catch point. These are all things that I think make for wide receivers that fly under the radar, because I think so much we're so concerned with, hey, do they have track and field times? Are they verified really, really fast players? Madden Williams is not super fast. He ain't slow, but he ain't super fast. But he's a really clean route runner that knows how to make plays in contested and tight areas. These things translate to the college football level. This is a very, very solid wide receiver prospect that is right in your backyard. Really gonna, he gets an offer, late yesterday afternoon. And so we'll kind of see how this one plays out over the next couple of weeks and months, because I would guess that USC is probably going to turn it up for a guy like Madden Williams. Now, the other storyline, the last storyline, then we'll close this one out. Sorry, I'm going a little long. Is that Stanford fired their head coach. And look, we've talked a lot about some Stanford players, right? And Stanford is not an elite program by any means. We all know that. But they do have spots where there are some really good football players on their roster. The first name, and so now obviously what happens when you fire your head coach? That 30-day transfer portal window opens up, and more importantly in the spring. I think the first name you're looking at is Emmett Mosley. I mean, his little brother just committed to USC a couple of weeks ago. Emmett Mosley, I believe, a true freshman for Stanford last year, came in, caught for over 500 yards. It's a box checker at the wide receiver position, a room that USC is kind of thin in, and quite frankly, is looking to find who their wide receiver three is going to be. Hey, we know what we have with Mekhi Lemon. We know what we have with Jacoby Lane. Who's going to be our wide receiver three? Emmett Mosley hits the portal. USC wants to go after Emmett Mosley. Not only are you getting a wide receiver that's only going into year 2 of their college football career, 3 years of eligibility remaining, but also has that proven wide receiver 3 production. This is, to me, like, would make a ton of sense for Emmett, would make a ton of sense for USC. Really interested to see how this one plays out. And then the last one, look, I know this is probably a long shot by now, but I'm going to keep saying it until this kid's in the NFL. David Bailey. David Bailey is one of the best pure edge rushers that we see in the country heading into the 2025 season. He's got a 27.5% pass rush win rate going back to last year at Stanford. Look, USC's looking for pass rush production. And that's probably the biggest goal for Danton Lynn and this defense going into 2025 is how can we do a better job getting after the quarterback with their front four. To me, and this is not a shot at Anthony Lucas. This is not a shot at Braylon Shelby, not a shot at Cam Fountain. I think David Bailey would come in and be the best edge rusher on this USC team because I think he's that good. This would, and he's a modern day kid, and USC's gaining a lot of momentum with modern day. I know he's 4 years removed from being in high school. This would be another one that makes a ton of sense. You might see some really good football players from Stanford hit the portal over the next couple of days and weeks. I think USC can be players for a couple of those names. We'll see how it plays out. We got all of spring practice to go for USC. We'll talk about some of the rumblings we heard from spring practice, but I kind of figured, hey, the bigger storylines right now for this USC program is what's going on the recruiting trail, what's going on in terms of talent acquisition, because it's a full court press to sign, arguably the best class we've seen USC sign in a very long time. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Obviously, if the commitments start coming in, we will be breaking them down. And the USC commitment sweatshirt is sitting right there. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.